All right, so I am logged onto YouTube and logged on to Facebook. Just finally figured out how to get both of them on together before I started tonight. So like I said, I'm Ashley, of course, of Day-to-Day Social Work, and I specialize in assisting people to pass the license exam in social work on the master's and bachelor's level. You can find me online at daytodaysocialwork.wix.com/my site, and you can find me on YouTube at Day-to-Day Social Work and also Facebook work. So I just wanted to come on. Hey, Andrea, I just wanted to come on and have a little social work chat. Like I said, I'm planning on making this a weekly thing, and hopefully it'll grow at some point. So I do have a few things, and I'm just going to get right to it because I know that with these videos, they will be recorded, and I don't want to just have live air while I'm recording the videos because people might watch them back and it's kind of awkward to sit there and watch somebody just sitting there waiting on time to pass. So I hope everybody's had a good week, a good Sunday. I've been spending all of my day. I got up, I cleaned up, I cooked, and then I started watching You on Netflix. So it's a pretty good series if you have some downtime and want to check out something on Netflix. A lot of people on social media was talking about it, so I gave it a try, and I've been watching episode after episode. So that's what I've been doing all day. I was sick all week, and now I think I'm just now getting better. So throughout the week, I've gathered some things stuff that just catches my attention that I wanted to bring back to you today. And I also hope that people have questions, because this is what this is primarily for. It's a question and answer session about social work, about day-to-day social work, about the test, about the exam, just anything dealing with social work. But this is going to be more so geared towards just social work in general. So I won't be reviewing any exam questions on this live session or any live session. Well, I won't say any live sessions in the future, but unless there's something that comes up that's like a dire desire that someone has to talk about a specific exam question. But hi, Miss Sellers. But this is just going to be social work chat. So a few things that came across my attention throughout the week, and I hope that you all can find some things that kind of dawn on you throughout the week that you want to bring in here for conversation. But the first thing, it is something very minor. I was on Instagram, and a lot of this stuff comes from social media, but I was on Instagram. I have a problem with getting started studying. I'll address that in just a second. So there was a girl that posted the term trypophobia, which I had never heard before. And she's like, well, if you don't know what this is, then go and look it up. And so that's what I did. I looked it up, and it's the fear of, I guess, small holes or bunches of small holes together. So she was sitting in a car, and if you have a sunroof or a moonroof or whatever you call it, you know how the raindrops kind of accumulate into like just a lot of little raindrops on your window or your sunroof. So she was afraid of that. So I looked it up, and it is an actual, it's not in the DSM-5, but it is an actual thing. So it's trypophobia. Beverly Ford, have any study guides in mind? Okay, so y'all want to get to it about the exam. Okay, so I just thought that was a cool thing to point out. So if you want to look into it, so I would suggest that you go and look into that in case you've ever heard it, or in case it might pop up in your studies one day or on the exam one day. So I have a problem with getting started studying. So the motivation to start studying is something that a lot of people kind of struggle with, especially if you've already graduated and you are already working and you've already started in your regular routine of your day-to-day life. So it is kind of hard to get motivated to start studying. I would say to that is to go ahead and set a date, because once you have a date set, then you know that you have to be on it and you have to get prepared by a certain time. So I would say to really look at your schedule and see when you would actually have time to study. And I always tell people that most people study for 4 to 6 weeks prior to their exam date, which is different for everybody. So some people might study for 2 months or 3 months, but to me, and this is just to me, that's a little excessive because, I mean, when you think about it, 3 months is a long time to study for an exam. And yes, this is an important exam. It's, you know, we have to pass it. We need it to open doors in our career. But at the same time, 3 months is a long time, because think about it. If you start studying now, the things that you study now, you may forget by the time it's March, the end of March. So you kind of want to have it in a compact time frame when you study. So you don't want to study for, in my opinion, and like I said, everybody's different. I knew somebody that studied for a year, and that's very, very excessive to me, because you're prolonging it. You need to have a study plan and to just get down to it and stick to your plan. So the things that I always tell people to have, at least as a starting point, if nothing else, is to have a copy of the KSAs for whichever exam you're preparing for. And they were recently updated in 2018. So make sure you have the most recent copy of the KSAs. And some people have never heard of the KSAs because nobody in school told them about it, and they just aren't aware. The KSAs are the knowledge, skills, and abilities. And it's a PDF that you can find online. It's even on the, I think it's the ASWB website. So they have one for the bachelor's exam, the master's exam, and the clinical exam. So make sure you have a copy of the KSAs. Now, when you go and look at the KSAs, it's going to be overwhelming, because the KSAs is really just each section that's on the exam broken down and what to expect from what could potentially be on the exam. So you will have the human development section, you'll have an ethics section, you have the direct and indirect practice, and then the assessment and intervention. All of that, hi Didi, all of that is broken down on the KSAs. But like I said, don't get overwhelmed and anxious about it. So all of this, you have to have a plan. So like I said, most people take 4 to 6 weeks to study. Some people won't need all of that time, and some people might need a little bit more, but you don't want to go studying on and on and on for a year. So if you get the KSAs, I always suggest going through each item one by one, marking out the stuff that you are already familiar with, and then highlighting the things that you're not so familiar with, or the things that you might need to have a refresher on. And that could be a part of your studying plan. So, I mean, really the KSAs are the key to the exam. So it's everything that you need to know. So once you have the KSAs and you have, you know, kind of an idea of what may potentially be on the exam, and always, always, always remember that none of us will know it all. None of us will ever be able to study all of this stuff. Sorry, I had a phone call. Can you repeat it? It's the KSAs, the knowledge, skills, and abilities. And you can find it on the ASWB website, or you can just Google it. But make sure you have the most recent copy from 2018, because remember, the exam changed in 2018. And so did the KSAs and the Code of Ethics. So whatever you're studying, make sure it's from 2018. So you need to make sure you're not looking at DSM-4, which at this point, I don't think anybody should be on DSM-4 anymore. I think, you know, they brought out the DSM-5 in 2015. So I think everybody at this point should be aware that there's DSM-5 and not DSM-4. So you want to make sure you have a copy of the KSAs. And also, if you missed anything that I didn't repeat, this will be available online and on the Facebook page for you to review again. But make sure you have a Code of Ethics, a copy of the most recent Code of Ethics. Again, in 2018, the exam changed and the Code of Ethics changed. And the major change for the Code of Ethics was to include like media technology and that kind of thing. So it's not that the whole Code of Ethics is redone. It's just that they've amended it and added some stuff to it. So I always tell people to make sure to read the Code of Ethics all the way through. What Facebook page I would like to join it? It's called Day-to-Day Social Work on Facebook. But read the code of ethics all the way through at least once before you take the exam. A lot of people don't read the code of ethics because they feel like they know how to be ethical and they just don't really feel like reading it. Yes, Beverly, make sure you Google it or either go on the ASWB website for the KSAs, the knowledge, skills, and abilities. So back to the code of ethics. Make sure you read the entire code of ethics at least once, word for word, before you take your exam, at least 3 days before you take the exam or sooner if you want to. And I say that because a lot of people don't read the code of ethics because they say they know how to be ethical. And that's true. Most of us do know how to be ethical on a regular day-to-day basis, but there are specific things in the code of ethics that you need to know word for word and be aware of. So make sure you read the code of ethics all the way through at least once when you are studying for the exam. Then another thing would be a comprehensive study guide. So again, of course, we all know social work is so broad and it encompasses a whole lot of topics and areas. None of us will ever be able to know it all. So it's good to not pull from a lot of different sources. It's good to have at least a comprehensive study guide that kind of touches on a little bit of everything, as opposed to grabbing from this person and that person and this book and these notes and these flashcards, because you have to have structure when studying for this exam. So those are the 3 things I always tell people to try to use as a preparation tool. So much has changed for the code of ethics. Ashley is so right. Right. So, I mean, and I have videos on the YouTube channel also that kind of breaks down the changes or the amendments to the code of ethics. ASWB has a study guide. I ordered one and it was only a few pages. Yeah. So there are tools out there. And like I said, as long as you have those 3 things, it's okay to pull from other places, but you don't want to pull from so many places that you start overwhelming yourself. So with the LMSW exam, it's important to know the content, of course, as with any exam, but the strategy is also important to know as well. Now that I'm preparing material that is more so geared towards the LCSW for 2019, I'm starting to see that it's kind of the opposite for the LCSW. Like, you have to know this clinical stuff because I'm looking at the questions and breaking everything down and preparing it for the LCSW content that I'm going to use for tutoring. And it's not so, from what I've been seeing, it's more so you have to know these clinical terms and that code of ethics. You have to know it for the clinical exam. Like Myra said before, when we were kind of tag teaming a couple of months ago, that is very, very important. How do you decide what to use to study? Well, like I said, it's as long as you have the KSAs, the code of ethics, and a comprehensive study guide, you can pull from some other places, but try not to pull from a lot of different places. I always suggest Dawn Apgar's comprehensive study guide because that's what pretty much everybody uses. I used it when I was studying for my exam in 2015. I'll probably use whatever edition will be out when I start studying for my LISW exam in like another 1.5 years from now. But some people use other material like therapist development. They're content heavy. There are other material that you can use, and that's just the one that I've heard the most about is therapist development. And they go over content and that kind of thing, but also use your resources that are free. Like, use YouTube. When I studied for this exam, I didn't pay anything to anybody, and I wasn't going to pay anything to anybody unless I failed the exam, because I wanted to take a stab at it on my own the first time. And I always tell people that, like, I'm not going to say, oh, come and tutor with me because you need to tutor with me. But like, I'm not in it for all of that. Like, if you feel like you can go and take that exam and pass it on the first try without tutoring or without paying all this hundreds of dollars for all this stuff, I suggest that you go and take the exam on your own and just try it out. we're going to pray and claim that you're going to pass it on the first try. But if you happen not to, then come back and consider tutoring and look at your options, because there are a lot of people that offer different packages and programs and tutoring and all this other stuff, but you want to go for quality. You want to go for someone who actually cares and who is actually here to help you and not just trying to get money and try to scam. I hate to say it, you know, because we're all social workers, but some people are just not in it for the right reasons. So you want to kind of make sure you look at your options before you invest in yourself. And it is an investment in yourself to get tutoring or to get someone to help you. So I just want to make that clear, that I'm always going to advocate for you to try it on your own first before you start, you know, investing in all these different materials. So yes, I have the Don Apgar book, and someone mentioned the ASWB Secret LMSW guide. I don't know about that Secret LMSW guide. I've never heard of it, but what I have heard of is the ASWB practice exam. If you're going to pay for any practice exam, I would suggest that you pay for the one directly from the ASWB, because that's going to, in my opinion, that's going to give you the most accurate gauge of how you may potentially do on the exam, because it comes directly from the test writer. So some people have practice exams. I don't know if they make them up or how they get them, but what happened to the live on Facebook? It should be, I don't know. Let's see. Thanks for bringing that to my attention. I don't know what happened to it, but it says that it ended. So I'll start it back up. But yeah, so if you're going to pay for any practice exam, I always suggest paying for the ASWB exam, their practice exam, because it's going to give you the best gauge of how you may potentially do on the actual exam. All right, so what else? Adrian, I just started it back up on Facebook. I'm not sure what happened to it, because I'm on one device connected to Facebook and YouTube. So it could potentially be that maybe my device kicked one of them off, because they're both using the same camera. And then Myra just texted me what happened to the live. Okay. Let me respond to her real quick. Okay, you're welcome. Okay, so what else? What are the questions about the exam, or just anything in general dealing with social work? Because I do have some things that I want to discuss, or that I prepared to discuss in case nobody had anything. Another thing that came across my attention this week was someone asked me about an online university for the program, for the MSW program. I don't want to give anybody any advice about what program to go to, because I haven't done any extensive research on any online universities for MSW programs. You do want to make sure that whatever program you choose, if you do decide to go online, and I don't think there's anything wrong with going online for your MSW, as long as it's from an accredited university that is fully recognized by the ASWB, by the NASW, by your state board. Make sure you do your research before going online. A lot of people do USC's online MSW program, and that's the University of Southern California. I've seen people do that one. Can we send you a copy of our score sheet from the exam to know what we missed? Yeah, that's fine. Another one is Fordham University. I've seen, and I've tutored a few people that went to Fordham University, which is an online university. So just do your research on those and make sure that it's a legit place that is accredited and approved. So I also wanted to talk about the exam for first-time test takers, because a lot of people graduated in December and will be taking the exam for the first time, and they don't really know what to expect. And I just want to make it clear that, yes, this is a hard exam, but it is possible for you to pass the exam on the first try without help or with help, or, and I also want to encourage people who may have taken the exam before and failed it, who may have taken it a few times and failed it. I don't want you to be discouraged. You're not alone. There are plenty of people who just don't do well on taking tests. And those are their words. Some people don't do well with taking tests. I'm one of them. I'm not a good test taker because I feel like, why am I having to take this test to prove anything when I go out into the field and work every day and, do a good job as a social worker? But I get it. We have to be licensed and that kind of thing. So don't feel any kind of way if you don't pass the exam on the first try or the second try or any other tries after that until you finally do. So I just want people to stay encouraged. But if it's your first time taking the exam, and I'll just go briefly over what to expect. Of course, you have to have 2 forms of ID. So make sure you bring at least 3 or 4, because when I went, I had 2, but one of them they didn't accept for some reason, and I had to go to my car and get something else. But bring 2 forms of ID, and all of this is on the ASWB website. So 2 forms of ID. Make sure you realize that this is a 170 question exam. 20 of the questions don't count. You don't know which 20 of them will be the ones that won't count. You have 4 hours to take the exam. You can get up and take as many breaks as you want. This one lady told me she took 14 breaks because she was so anxious. Try not to let your anxiety get the best of you, because from doing this for almost 4 years now, anxiety and overthinking and second guessing yourself, those are the main reasons why people don't pass the exam. And so we try to curb that in tutoring and help you to learn the strategies and be more confident in your answer choices and that kind of thing. Also, you can't take anything in the exam room with you. All you need to take is your forms of ID, and that's it, because you can't take, they have lockers out in the lobby area where if you need to put your wallet or something like that, but all you can take in the exam room is the little board that they give you to write notes on, and the your ID, I think, and the key to your locker, I think. You may not even be able to take your ID in there. But anyway, so those are the only things you can take in the exam. They record you visually and audio. They do video and audio recordings while you're taking the exam. So they're watching, because I guess some people cheat. So make sure that you are aware of that. They will, at least at my site, they took our picture, they scanned our palms for identification, they made us roll up our sleeves and empty our pockets. It's real serious business with this exam. And, they give you a tutorial before you take the exam of how to navigate the screens. The clock is another thing I always tell people about. If you're so anxious that seeing that time ticking away is going to bother you, I always tell people to hide the clock, but don't forget that you hit it, because you need to make sure that you track your time. So everything is a strategy on this exam, even down to the time. So you have about 1 minute and 41 seconds per question on the exam. Some of the questions will be recalled, so you'll be able to quickly answer those questions and free up some time to answer some of the more difficult questions. But, pace yourself. If you do a practice exam, whether it's the one from the ASWB or some other source, pace yourself and see how long it takes you to answer the questions. So I always tell people that. And then at the very end, they ask you some questions, and then they tell you if you pass or you failed. So if you pass, you get your little printout and it tells you, congratulations. It tells you your score. If you fail, they give you a printout as well. They tell you your score, and they let you know how you did in each area. So a lot of people are now aware, because it's been a year, that the old indirect and direct practice sections on the exam are now called interventions with clients and client systems. So just be aware of that. That section also weighs a little bit more now. So be aware of that. A lot of people, some people don't do so well on that portion because they can't seem to train their minds to think as the perfect by the book social worker, which none of us are, although we strive every day to be. But on this exam, that's how you have to think as the perfect by the book social worker. So some people will answer the questions as they would in real life, as opposed to how they should answer the questions as the perfect by the book social worker. And with that, interventions with clients and client systems, those are the kind of questions that are a little more difficult for people to change their thinking. And so they say, oh, well, I do this on my job, so I'll do it this way. And sometimes it might be the right answer and sometimes it might not be. So in tutoring, I always try to explain to people why the right answers are right and why the wrong answers are wrong, so that you can get a question right, but for the wrong reason. So you have to learn the rationales behind the exam and how the test writer wants you to think. And that's what I work on with you in tutoring. So let's see, what else about the exam? If you happen to fail the exam, you have to wait. In most places, you have to wait 90 days before you can take the exam again. And then what else? In some cases, some people are able to take the exam before the 90 days are up if their job is at jeopardy. So you would have to get a letter from your employer and send it to the board. And every state is different. So most of the time, I'm speaking from my experience as a licensed social worker in the state of South Carolina. So some people can't wait for you to make a mistake and say something that is not in line with their state. So I'm speaking from South Carolina. And I always refer people back to their board or their state to get accurate information. I am from Florence, South Carolina. All righty. I see you on Facebook a lot. So I think we're in some of the same groups on Facebook. My anxiety is my hurdle. Right. So as cliche as it sounds, a lot of times deep breathing can help you with your anxiety. So it's breathing in through your mouth deeply and then exhaling. And actually, when you breathe in deeply and you hold it in, it's supposed to slow down your heart rate. So if you're ever anxious or in like panic, that deep breathing in and out, it slows your heart rate back down. So if you're so anxious where you can feel your pulse and you can feel your heart beating, doing that deep breathing is something that can help you. Some people are so anxious, though, that sometimes they may need a little more than just deep breathing or meditation or whatever other means of coping you do to cope with anxiety. Some people have medication and there's nothing wrong with that. If you are on the exam so anxious that you really can't function, or if you already take anxiety medication for whatever reason, then your doctor can help you get accommodations for the exam. And there's absolutely nothing wrong with accommodations. Can we send you a copy of the score sheet? Yes, that's fine. There's absolutely nothing wrong with accommodations. The exam is not easier if you get accommodations. Some people are totally against accommodations because they feel like that they're getting an easier test or something is wrong with them or whatever. There's nothing wrong with accommodations if you need them. Like I said, you have to work with your doctor to get that paperwork turned in prior to scheduling your exam or taking the exam. I have a video on the YouTube page about accommodations. So don't feel any kind of way about accommodations. Now, some of the accommodations I've seen people have that I've tutored, I've had a lady who took her exam on paper. Have you ever heard of people taking medication to help with focusing? Yes, I have. And like I said, there's absolutely nothing wrong with that. If you do, or if you know anybody that does, they can have accommodations on their exam if they need it. And some people that take medication, they don't need accommodations because they're still able to do whatever, or some people just feel better having that in place. Another accommodation I've seen is people having a dictionary and a thesaurus because English may not be their first language and there's a language barrier. Some people have an hour of extra time or 30 minutes of extra time, 2 hours of extra time. Like I said, one lady had a paper exam and she had 8 hours to take her exam. But if you take a paper exam, your exam is not scored that same day and it'll take a couple weeks to get your results. Some people are able to take snacks and drinks into the exam room. Some people are able to get a whole exam room to themselves. Some people are able to, what's another one? I've heard of some kind of device or something that they're able to put on the computer screen because of their vision. So, the board and the ASWB or whoever the powers that be are, they will work with you if you need accommodations. Again, the test is not going to change. The test is still going to be the same level of difficulty that it would be for a person without accommodations. Let's see. I have 2 extra hours accommodation. Yep. So that's good. And then some people need a room to themselves because they have to hear themselves read out loud and be able to hear what's going on in the scenario. So, we're all different, and it would do a disservice to us if everybody had to have all of the same kind of things put in place for them to take the exam, because everybody is different. All right, what else? Also, if there are any people that are a part of Delta Sigma Theta Sorority Incorporated, today is our Founders Day. So happy Founders Day to you all, if you're out there. Let's see, what else here? So just to touch again on the LMSW versus the LCSW exam, as I'm preparing for the upcoming year and tutoring for the upcoming year, I am seeing that the content and the questions for the LCSW exam is a lot different from the LMSW exam, and it's really going to take a lot of studying and knowing the theories and theorists and the code of ethics on this exam. So it's going to be a little different for when I start tutoring a little bit more for the LCSW exam. It's going to be a little bit different because I think I may do a little more review for those videos. For South Carolina, should accommodations be requested before scheduling? Yes, you have to speak with the board. There's a video, and in that video on my YouTube channel, I put a link to the application as well as the information, and I go over what you have to do. So if you go to the day-to-day social work, not website, but page on YouTube, there's a video there on accommodations. But yeah, so on the LCSW tutoring that I'm going to do a little bit more of this year, I think that I will be doing a little more review of the theories in the actual tutoring session, because the questions seem to be a little more recall, and the questions seem to be a little bit more clinical, of course, because this is the clinical exam, and the questions seem to be a little bit more content heavy. So when I do tutoring for this LCSW or LISW exam this coming year, I will be reviewing, and I'll also be, when I make the videos, there will be review on Bandura and Adler and Erickson and Piaget and Moeller and all these people that we don't think about on a day-to-day basis, but we have to know for the exam. Greetings from Australia. Hi, welcome, Wonderful Life. Welcome to the group chat. Let's see, what else? Another person sent me a message and asked about salary for, I think they said they have a BSW, and that they were looking to get into medical social work. I'm not sure that they were in the state of South Carolina, but I always tell people that salary is different across the nation. So I can't really say what you should expect your salary to be for a BSW or an MSW with a license, without a license, and all that kind of stuff. It really just depends on where you live, what the market is for where you live, the kind of work you'll be doing, what your credentials are. But I always will say, don't sell yourself short and always negotiate. Because I definitely didn't negotiate when I first accepted my current job, because I was surprised that they even offered me what I was asking for, because it was so stuck in my mind that social workers don't make any money. And, you know, I thought that what I was asking for was a whole lot. And so when they called and offered me what I was asking for, I was like, oh, okay. But I work in medical social work, and I came from working in nonprofits that were mostly based on grants. So my expectation for myself was not really that high, but I should have negotiated. I beat myself up so many times for like a whole year that I didn't negotiate, but I'm at a comfortable salary. And I've gotten like 2 or 3 raises since I started this job. So I'm good. But once I go to a new job, definitely negotiate. People always say that social workers don't make any money and you're going to be poor and you're going to have 3 jobs. And that's just not true. Now, can you have 3 jobs or 2 jobs or do something on the side dealing with social work? Yes. And that's always good to have extra money. But you can also have a comfortable living as a social worker. So don't let anybody put that in your mind. You make your career yourself. You make your own path. So you start from somewhere and just be strategic about your moves in your career. You know, some people do consulting and some people open their own practices and all that kind of thing. So just be strategic in your career moves, and especially with your internships. If you're still in school, make sure that you go to an internship try to get an internship where you want to work. And when you go, treat it as a job. Like, don't just treat it as, oh, I'm in school, because you're technically paying them to teach you, because it's part of your tuition anyway, when you have to have an internship. And some people have paid internships. So that whole salary thing, Glassdoor.com, I think, is one where you can kind of do some research about what your salary should be for your area, for someone with your credentials, and just Google in general. Like, a lot of people don't use Google to their advantage. Everything that you come across on Google is not accurate or good information, but most of the time you can find good, accurate information on Google. Or just talk to people in your field of work and ask, or just call the HR department directly at whatever job you want to work for and ask them what the salary range is and what you could expect if you were to apply for a job there. Just be strategic about everything that you do. Let's see. So someone was asking also about movies, because I do like to talk about current day things, except politics and religion most of the time, because those are the 2 taboo topics. So I don't get into all of that. And if I do, I don't get deeply into that. But someone was asking about movies that they could watch, books that they could read to kind of get a better idea of social work. And the first movie that came to my mind was Call Me Crazy on Netflix. This message is held for review. Somebody is sending me a very vulgar message, and I don't know who this person is, but we're gonna delete them. That's ridiculous. Okay, so Anyway, so Call Me Crazy is the name of a movie that I saw on Netflix that someone recommended when I was in grad school. And it kind of goes through, I think, like 4 people's stories about different disorders or diagnoses, and gives you an idea of how a person with that disorder may live their life. So that's one. What was another one? I didn't watch a whole lot of movies that are geared towards disorders and things like that. But if you know of any, leave them in the comments so that we can share. Or if you've ever seen Call Me Crazy, then, you know, let us know what you thought about it. Let's see. I don't know. How can I block this person? Because they sent me a very vulgar message and now they're sending me something else. Let's report this person and remove them because we don't have time for negativity. Remove. Okay. Another one is What About Bob? Dark comedy. Okay, let's see. Where can we see that one? I wouldn't mind checking that out. What About Bob? Hi, Brittany. Yeah, so I don't know who this person is that is, you all might be able to see him. It's on YouTube. He sent me a very vulgar message, and then he wrote something that wasn't vulgar and it popped up. But yeah, so and then lastly, because we've been on here for about 41 minutes. Also, if you think of any questions or anything before I end the session or the live or whatever you want to call it, then just type it in the comments. But the last thing I wanted to talk about is the 2 books, or I think I might have mentioned one of them the last week, but the book called The Gift of Therapy by Irvin Yalom. I did start reading that one, and I wanted to talk about that for a few minutes. And then also another book that I had been reading. Let's see. It's called Adult Children of Emotionally Immature Parents by Lindsay Gibson. I think I might have mentioned that one in the live last week. So I'm almost through with that one. Maybe YouTube for What About Bob, and then Amazon Prime. Okay. So the book called Adult Children of Emotionally Immature Parents, I had come from supervision one day, and my supervisor told me the name of another book, and I tried to find it on Hoopla, but I couldn't find it. And so I found this one instead. Hoopla, in case you aren't aware, is it's an app that you can listen to audiobooks for free. You can read books for free. You can listen to music for free. It's kind of like Audible, except it's free, and you have to have a library card. So it's an app that you can download on your phone or your device and be able to read or listen to books and music and that kind of thing. All you have to do is put in your library card number from your local library, and you can check out, I think, like 7 books a month. So these are audiobooks that I listen to when I'm not reading books for book club and stuff like that. So, but I was listening to this one because my dad is emotionally immature. And so when I was listening to that book, it kind of gave me some insight. Kia Ora. What's that? What's Kia Ora? Is that a book? I'll write that down though. But it kind of gave me insight into my relationship with my dad. And so a lot of times, of course, we need to know ourselves and be aware of our own background and culture and issues in our lives in order to help our clients and our patients better. So anything that's going to help me have better self-actualization, I'm all for it. So I started listening to it, and it kind of gave me insight on my relationship with my dad and just parents in general that may be emotionally immature, who may be codependent on their kids and that kind of thing. So that is a book that I'm reading, because I've had it for a while. And then The Gift of Therapy is the other book that I just started reading recently. The Gift of Yalom is the book that my supervisor told me about. I wanted to be more clinical minded as opposed to candid, since I plan on this once I'm done with my supervision and pass the exam for my LISW CP, which is what it's called in South Carolina, the Licensed Independent Social Work Clinical Practice, in the state of South Carolina. So I've only read the first 2 chapters. The first chapter is called Remove the Obstacles to Growth. So it was a very short chapter. But then the second chapter is Avoid Diagnosis Except for Insurance Companies. So I was listening to that, and it basically was saying that diagnosis is counterproductive to in the everyday psychotherapy of less severely impaired patients, which to me that makes sense, because we don't want to focus so much on the diagnosis rather than the person. And I think a lot of times therapists do that. And that's why it's hard for us to find a therapist that we mesh with, because they're so anxious about diagnosing the patient, so that they can bill insurance and all that kind of stuff, that they don't really pay attention to the patient as a person. So it talked about that. And it said that psychotherapy is an unfolding process wherein the therapist attempts to get to know the patient, and diagnosis limits the vision and the ability to relate to the other person, to the other as a person, and get to know the person. So I do think that that's true. Like I said, I've been to therapy twice before, literally only 2 times, 2 sessions, with a different therapist each time. And I really did feel like instead of getting to know me, they were sold by the book, which is why I initially didn't want to be a therapist, because I don't want to be by the book. I want to talk to people on a real level, which is why I like case management, because we're able to deal with crisis and do crisis intervention and talk to people, where they are. So I'm glad that I found this book that kind of says, okay, don't be so clinical, in so many words is what it's saying, to get to know the person as a person instead of treating them as just what their diagnosis is. And then it says, once the diagnosis is made, we selectively inattend to the things that don't fall in line with the diagnosis and over-attend to subtle things that seem to confirm the initial diagnosis. So we could be in a session with someone and we've diagnosed them with depression or schizophrenia or something like that. And it says that we inattend to the things that don't fall in line with that diagnosis. So that person could be telling us about something that really happened to them. I know when I was in supervision last Sunday, one of the colleagues that is in the group with us, she was saying that she did an assessment with a patient, and the patient said that her daughter was somewhere running around with R. Kelly. So and that's because we were talking about R. Kelly, because that was a current topic, a current event. So she said that she wrote down, that the patient was delusional. And it turned out that somebody showed her on social media, the patient's daughter, and the patient was running around with R. Kelly. So, we don't want to focus so much on the diagnosis or what we think about a person. Most of the time, to be honest, though, most of the time, if someone is saying that their child is running around with R. Kelly, it could be delusional. I'll say 9 times out of 10, it could be delusional. But, at the same time, it could be true. So we just have to take those kind of things into consideration. And then it says that we over-attend to the subtle things that seem to confirm the initial diagnosis. So if someone is saying that they're depressed, and they just, they have like maybe seasonal depression. They're not really sad because they're only depressed in the winter months or whatever, and it's summertime, and you've diagnosed them with depression, but here they are in July and they just seem to have a bad day. You might be kind of pressed that they're experiencing a pitfall in their depression when actually they might have just had a bad day. So that's what they pretty much mean, that you over attend to the subtle things that seems to confirm that initial diagnosis. So instead of looking at the person, the patient as a person, we are over attending to the diagnosis. So I don't want to get too far into words and get confused and all that, or confuse you all and that kind of thing. So I just wanted to touch on that. And then it says diagnosis may act as a self-fulfilling prophecy relating to the patient by diagnosis may stimulate and perpetuate the traits of that diagnosis. So if we're treating someone as if they have depression, if that's all they are, if we're treating them that way, then it kind of perpetuates what they think about themselves, or it kind of stimulates what they think about themselves. So instead of focusing on the solution to how to help this person overcome or cope with their depression or their diagnosis, we tend to make it a self-fulfilling prophecy if we focus so much on the diagnosis rather than the person. And then it goes on to say that we know more about the patient after, say, 10 sessions rather than the first session where the diagnosis is initially made off just first impressions and that first bit of information that we get. And then lastly, it said, what could your therapist use to diagnose you? So, you could be having a bad week day, or we could be having symptoms, or, we always try to attempt to diagnose our family members and our friends because, oh, well, this person seems like they have two personalities, and this person is this, and this person is bipolar, and all this kind of stuff. We kind of overuse diagnosis is basically what I was getting from it. So I'm going to be reading that book. If anybody wants to read it, also, again, I'm just listening to it on audiobook on Hoopla. And again, Hoopla is an app that you can use to listen to free audiobooks and read ebooks online. So I'll probably be touching on those chapters when I do these live sessions every week. So that's pretty much all that I have for tonight. Let's see. Yep. So I've been just keeping a little running list all week long, just about things that I come across while I'm working or going to whatever that I kind of want to just bring up talking to y'all on these chats. So I do, though, encourage people to bring questions, whether it's about the exam or just anything related to social work. You're welcome. And hopefully, I think there's a tool on here where we can connect and have two people talking on here at the same time, where I could probably port you in on the call and have, at some point we could probably try to work towards that. I'll have to look at what these options are. Hey, I have a busy week. Thank you for your informed strategies for test taking the LMSW exam. No problem. You're welcome. I have a busy week coming up, a lot of training, a lot of traveling to go and see patients and stuff. So I hope that y'all have a good week. I hope that y'all can bring back something next Sunday. I'm going to try to do this every Sunday around 7 p.m. depending on what's going on in life and that kind of thing. So hopefully y'all will have some questions. My email address and contact information today social work is on every video that's on the YouTube channel. So I also encourage you to share with your colleagues about day-to-day social work and your friends, and I hope that we have a successful 2019. And this video will be available for viewing both on YouTube and Facebook. So I will see y'all next week. Have a good night.